let yourself in? Hey, are you deaf? I'm talking to you! If I tell anyone about this, I'll end up in an asylum.
The Beast Inside is a first-person horror game that follows Adam and Nicholas, two characters separated by over 100 years. Atmosphere. The game is split by its two characters, with Adam's chapters being suspenseful but a bit slow and tedious. They're mostly set during the day and usually involve solving puzzles and exploring his house and gardens, which is pretty disarming. There's a sense of mystery as he begins to suspect he's being watched by Soviet spies, and as things escalate his chapters become more action-orientated and the suspense dissipates.
Son of a bitch, it's all so clear now.
You don't think that...
I do. They want to get us so nothing would surprise me.
A few days ago, someone was hanging around here too. I caught a glimpse of him behind the trees.
On the other hand, Nicholas's chapters start out pretty intense and feature the majority of the scares. They all take place at night, and some of the environments from the mines to the rundown hotel are pretty creepy and foreboding.
Hey, what are you doing here? This is private property.
Despite being provided with a lantern and matches, there wasn't really much need to use any of these besides very specific moments, and I ended up amassing a large collection of fuel and matches for light sources that I didn't need because the game just wasn't that dark. Nicholas's chapters are spooky but never really go beyond that, with the first chapter you play as him being the most intense, besides the parts where you have to steal a key from an enemy later in the game. The overall atmosphere is quite weak, with Nicholas's chapters not amounting to much and Adam's chapters providing respite that you didn't really need. That's no Harry Masons.
That's my father's hat. Dear God. See if this is a good idea.
Scares. The game uses a lot of jump scares, and whilst a small few of them feel earned, there are an overwhelming number of cheap ones, where something appears for a moment to grab you or run at you before disappearing, and that aspect of it is never really explained. Sadly, due to how thin the atmosphere is, some of the jump scares just fail to land completely. There's a few creepy scripted events with people appearing and disappearing as you lose track of them. It's a little overused but can be pretty eerie.
God damn it!
The game uses a lot of quick-time events, and thanks to the game mechanics, it can really ruin certain scares and moments when it seems like some of these didn't need to really be quick-time events at all, and it can be pretty frustrating. There's a few parts of the game where you have to sneak around enemies to avoid them in tight areas, but the highly scripted nature of their walking patterns really removed the fear from the scenario. Nicholas has a lot of chase sequences and most of them are pretty exciting, but I found a lot of them were very easy and very few of them were frightening, besides the one in Maria's house where you have to pickpocket her key and escape from her. She moves very quickly and she can kill you instantly. This was a bit frustrating when she would turn around instantly and seemingly teleport to your location and kill you before you could move away, which felt unfair. The way Nicholas and the enemies are presented throughout the game is inconsistent, with certain scenes where they can kill you instantly, and other scenes where the same enemy can be nearly drowned to death by Nicholas. One minute he's portrayed as weak and helpless, and the next minute he's stabbing enemies in the eyes with garden shears and pushing a grenade into their stomach. There wasn't really any frightening moments in Adam's chapters, and whilst there were a good few moments in Nicholas's chapters, it really wasn't enough. That's still no Harry Masons. Sound design. The soundtrack is largely orchestral, with Adam's chapters having warm string pieces and the occasional creepy suspense tracks. Nicholas's chapters were full of wind-like ambient and dramatic and cinematic chase music that really enhanced those moments. There's a few light mystery pieces with some enchanting chimes, but that's about it. The soundtrack is a bit forgettable and not hugely original, but it certainly provides backing for the events of the game. The sound effects are all realistic and a lot of different clips bring the environments to life, but nothing really stood out or sounded especially creepy or important. The voice acting is very good for nearly all of the characters, except ironically for Adam and Nicholas, who just seem distracted or don't seem to be convinced by what they're saying. The sound space is pretty incredible, with sound effects of things being heard from other rooms becoming clearer as you approach or pass by doorways, and luckily the directional audio is completely on point. Whilst there are some flaws, the sound design is pretty good, but not hugely original. That's one Harry Mason.
Fuck, I think I'm gonna puke.
Gore. There's a ton of gore, from characters chopping off their own fingers to people getting stabbed and in one case even blown up, spraying blood everywhere. The worst it gets is shoving your hand inside a dead animal to retrieve something, yet somehow it never feels too much, with the spacing of these gory moments making them more a rare event than a common thing.
Let me go! Help! Help!
I will relieve you of your life, you Yankee bastard! You can't stop the assassination! Lincoln must pay for his lies!
That's 2 Harry Masons. Story. The game follows 2 characters, Adam and his wife Emma in 1979 during the height of the Cold War. With Adam being a code cracker for the US government, he stumbles upon a mysterious box and code wheel in the attic of his new home and discovers diary entries by Nicholas, a previous occupant of the house whose diary dates back to 1864. Nicholas's story follows the paranormal events and mysterious masked man that are plaguing him and his family's heritage before making him question what he really knows about his family and even himself. Whilst Adam's sections are interesting to a degree, I found them mostly trivial on the way to Nicholas's story-rich chapters, which were far more interesting and engaging. There are tons of diary entries and newspaper clippings that keep on revealing more and more about Nicholas's family and the conspiracy around it, and his father's strange actions. The game has multiple choice endings, and whilst again Nicholas's choices seemed impactful, Adam's were a bit sudden and kind of irrelevant. It really feels like most of the love went into Nicholas's chapters, with most of the plot twists in Adam's feeling kind of tacked on and only there to justify his existence in the story at all. His side of the story had the most loose ends, and Adam's final sequence kind of felt like a cop-out. However, the story in Nicholas's chapters more than compensate, making the final score 3 out of 5 Harry Masons. To be brutally honest, it feels like Adam's chapters didn't need to be in the game at all, with a lot of mundane puzzle solving and walking through scenic valleys that didn't provide much towards the overall experience of a horror game. There was some genuine intrigue that I felt never really got any payoff, and even if the game was only Nicholas's chapters, it would still need to focus less on uninspiring jump scares. Again, I'd like to remind you this whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games. If you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I chose murder in the end, I did not scream like a banshee or run away from the computer, and I advise you don't either. There'll be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. Always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.